Did you know there's a single state in this country where turning someone down for a glass of water is actually against the law? We'll get to that. And yes, it's counted among the freest states around. See, in some states, the government acts like it's perpetually hovering behind you with a clipboard, sizing up your fence, your truck, your business license, your rain barrel, your property, and very possibly your breathing technique. And in other states, the government basically shrugs and goes, "You doing okay? Just don't torch anything. Have a nice one." And then it leaves you be. Those second ones are the states we're running through today. So let's dive in. First up, number 10, Texas. For a few decades now, Texas has marketed itself as the place where freedom gallops in on horseback, hauling a brisket and apologizing to no one. And in fairness, on the tax and business front, a good chunk of that reputation is earned. There's no state income tax here, which is huge. And heads up, that's going to keep popping up as we work down this list. That one fact alone sends plenty of Californians and New Yorkers gazing wistfully into the middle distance like they just caught angels warming up a fiddle. Texas also runs a seriously strong business climate, heaps of job growth, and an overall vibe that if you want to launch something, build a thing, or sell a thing, the state won't bury you in a paperwork binder thick enough to stop a bullet. Compare that to California, where you'll complete enough forms to shield yourself from a cruise missile just to open a lemonade stand. That said, Texas isn't quite the free-for-all folks imagine. The Cato Institute's Freedom Index shows Texas scoring great economically while lagging considerably on personal freedom, particularly around criminal justice, weed, gambling, and a handful of other liberty questions. Put differently, Texas is free in he start a business and buy a ranch sense, but not always in the do whatever you want nobody cares as long as you don't hurt anyone sense. Even so, for anyone bolting from a high-tax state, Texas looks awfully tempting. There are jobs, there's land, there's sunshine, there's no income tax, and there's enough breathing room that your neighbor would need binoculars to pass judgment on your lawn. Number 9. Indiana. Indiana rarely scores an invite to the trendy Freedom State discussions. It just quietly handles its business while nobody writes any poetry about it. If Indiana were a guy who hit the gym, he wouldn't be broadcasting it on social media, and he definitely wouldn't be snapping photos. He'd just show up and put in the reps. Largely because Indiana has roughly the personality of a pet rock. But off in the background, Indiana gets an awful lot right. The Cato Institute slots Indiana inside the top 10 states for overall freedom, while the Fraser Institute rates it highly on economic freedom. So Indiana might not be the showy one, but it hands residents a pretty solid mix of fewer regulatory headaches. It's not out to reinvent your whole life every time the legislature meets. It's also a dependable pick for anyone craving stability. Housing stays reasonably affordable compared with most of the country. Small businesses get a smoother road. They aren't hacking through some bureaucratic jungle armed with a machete and the right name to drop. And once you wander past the metro areas, there's a real mind-your-own-business spirit to the place. Number 8. Oklahoma. Oklahoma is intriguing because it tends to draw the same Freedom State buzz as Texas, Florida, and Tennessee. Picture the low-key guy at a cookout who happens to own 6 businesses, pays cash for everything, and can apparently repair any engine built since the 1940s. The Fraser Institute scores Oklahoma high on economic freedom, ranking it near the top across the states and provinces of North America, which is a major reason it cracks this list. Oklahoma leans friendly toward business, stays relatively affordable, and isn't fixated on policing every square inch of how you spend your day. Whether it's firearms or wildly over-the-top conspiracy theories, the state pretty much lets you wade right into both. It's also made a few strides on the personal freedom front over the years, which is a good thing. The Cato Institute points out that Oklahoma has picked up ground on personal freedom thanks to shifts in gun rights, weed laws, alcohol rules, and criminal justice reform. That hands you a bit more balance than certain states that are economically loose yet socially tight enough to make a church lady feel secondhand embarrassment. Oklahoma's not without its troubles. The rural infrastructure, the tornadoes, the schools, the healthcare, all of that is a genuine concern. But if the question is just which government leaves you be most of the time, Oklahoma earns its spot. The catch, of course, is that you'd have to actually live in Oklahoma to cash in on those freedoms. And Oklahoma sort of stinks. Number 7. Tennessee. Tennessee has turned into one of those textbook I'm fed up with high taxes and nonsense destinations. People relocate for lighter taxes, cheaper living, milder weather, and the general sense that Nashville is on fire with growth, while pockets of California busy themselves regulating the shadow cast by your duplex. Tennessee carries no state income tax, which is a serious magnet. As we keep mentioning, it also tends to grade out well economically and has consistently placed strong in freedom rankings. Cato specifically observes that Tennessee is among the states that have historically performed well and still sits in the overall top 10. For retirees, business owners, remote workers, and anyone unwilling to fork over state income tax for the honor of idling in traffic, Tennessee has plenty of curb appeal. The state radiates a strong handle. Your own affairs energy, especially once you leave the major metros. But there's a wrinkle. There's always a wrinkle. Tennessee is sturdier on economic freedom than on the personal kind. The Cato Institute groups it with the states that thrive economically yet stumble on the personal freedom side. So Tennessee is no libertarian paradise where bald eagles swoop down to notarize your independence papers in person. It's closer to keep your taxes low, run your business, hold on to your property, and don't go asking a bunch of strange questions. Number 6. Idaho. Idaho has quietly become the unofficial getaway for people chasing mountain elbow room, lighter regulation, and far fewer debates about whether the compost bin requires a permit from City Hall. Ask one too many composting questions in Idaho, and sooner or later somebody's going to tell you, it's garbage, toss it in the can, set it on the curb, you freaking hippie. The Fraser Institute likewise ranks Idaho extremely high on economic freedom. That counts for a lot. Idaho has earned a name as a place where running a business is fairly painless and the taxes don't crush you the way they do out on the coast. And the government generally isn't fussing over every nook of your existence. Idaho's draw is uncomplicated. People want land, safety, the great outdoors, and fewer rules. That's exactly why it's pulled in such a wave of transplants from other states, places where buying a home might call for either inherited wealth or a bargain struck with some shady woodland spirit. But Idaho is yet another state with its freedom split down the middle. Economically, it shines. On the personal side, the Cato Institute lumps it with the states that run freer economically but tighter personally. So Idaho's a dream if what you want is property, a business, mountains, and not getting taxed down to a decorative skeleton. It's a shaky. Fit if your idea of freedom leans hard into personal lifestyle liberties. Still, for the just leave me alone crowd, Idaho is about as obvious a choice as exists in America. Number 5. Arizona. Arizona feels like it was dreamed up by someone who wanted sunshine, open space, and a lot fewer people inquiring about what exactly he's doing in that shed with the chainsaw. The Cato Institute pegs Arizona as the 5th freest state in the union. It also flags that Arizona has improved dramatically since 2010, turning especially strong on educational freedom and regulatory overhaul. That hands Arizona a fairly solid case for being here. Arizona has also ranked among the top destinations for people fleeing California. Some arrive for retirement, some for work, and some show up because they got one look at their California property tax bill, muttered a quiet absolutely not to themselves, and started boxing things up before dinner. And they're perfectly fine handing every goofball a glass of water on demand. The state piles on freedom-friendly perks, business growth, schools, lighter regulatory weight than a lot of coastal states, and a culture still loaded with that old Western, you don't bug me and I won't bug you attitude. The drawback is the heat. It's hot as blazes out there. But on the question of the government simply letting people be, Arizona still ranks near the top of any freedom list. Number 4. Nevada. Nevada is essentially America's adult supervision optional state. Cato puts Nevada at number 4 overall and calls it a longtime frontrunner on personal freedom. That tracks. Nevada has constructed an entire identity around the notion that grown-ups are grown-ups. Money is money. And if you feel like making dubious choices beneath the neon, that's strictly between you, your wallet, and whatever went down after midnight. There is no state income tax at all. That by itself plants Nevada on the freedom map. And Nevada further stands apart because it's genuinely loose economically and carries a wider streak of personal liberty than a lot of states that brag about freedom while quietly stashing the rulebook under the sofa cushions. I mean, for as long as anyone can remember, it was one of the only states allowing gambling that didn't sit on a reservation. And naturally, you've also got the freedom to rent some companionship by the hour, if that's your thing. Look, outside of Clark County, you can own pretty much any firearm you please around here. It's wild. Years back, I came across some service or excursion where you could hop in a helicopter and blast targets out in the desert with a machine gun. Folks shelled out serious cash for that when they could have just enlisted like I did and done it for free until they were thoroughly sick of it. Nevada is also welcoming to business, particularly next to neighboring California. That's a big part of why so many people and companies have peered across the state line and gone, hang on, I can hold on to more of my money and deal with fewer headaches? Why has nobody brought this up before? The downside is that Nevada can get pricey in the popular spots, especially in and around Las Vegas and Reno. On top of that, water is a long-haul worry, and the desert doesn't exactly hand out second chances. But on personal freedom, Nevada is one of the country's strongest cases. Number 3. South Dakota. This is the state you get when a place stares down big government and replies, "No thanks. We've got wind, cattle, and enough gravel roads to disappear from the paperwork entirely." Cato puts South Dakota at number 3 overall for freedom. The Fraser Institute likewise rates it pretty high on economic freedom. It's also got, surprise, no state income tax, a laid-back regulatory setup, and a solid reputation for treating both business and personal independence kindly. Now, South Dakota isn't for everybody. The winters here are genuinely brutal. I once tried riding a motorcycle, somewhere in the dead of winter, and my crotch fused itself to the seat. But if low taxes, a light regulatory touch, and a government that mostly doesn't loom over your day like a drone toting a clipboard sound appealing, South Dakota is among the best bets in America. And that's a big reason it's gotten so popular over the past several years. Even with those harsh winters, people keep moving to South Dakota because you can actually build a life there without living under the boot of the man every single day. I'm a fan of South Dakota. I'm a fan of winter. No clue why I don't live there myself. I think I'd take Wisconsin over it, honestly, but it's a fantastic option. Number 2, Florida. The Sunshine State is one of the biggest freedom magnets going, and not purely because people enjoy living near palm trees while alligators casually become local celebrities. Plenty of folks move there so they can flip on the evening news, hear about whatever some guy got up to, and think, yeah, I'm considerably sharper than that fella. Cato has Florida parked in the top 5 basically forever on fiscal policy. It also notes that Florida's gains over the past decade or so have come mainly from the fiscal side, things like trimming government spending, taxes, and debt. That's perpetually the headline draw: no state income tax. Most no-income tax states also happen to be wildly popular ones, which makes total sense. I have never in my entire life met a single soul who's thrilled about April 15th. Add a robust economy, a sizable retirement population, business-friendly policy, and a state culture that loves to brand itself as the landing pad for people fed up with being bossed around by colder, costlier states. Florida isn't the bargain it once was, so let's drop any fantasy on that front. It's gotten expensive, and if you followed this channel for any length of time, you already know the insurance situation here is a disaster. Home prices in loads of areas have rocketed up. Traffic in certain spot. This feels like collective punishment. And if you choose to buy property along the coast, Mother Nature will occasionally remind everybody who's really holding the deed. But when people talk about relocating for freedom, taxes, and fewer rules, Florida usually rides near the top of the list. It's turned into the national face of, I ditched my old state and held on to more of my paycheck. Now, before we hit number 1, if you've been mulling over a move to another state, there's a link down in the description for a site called Home and Money. They'll hook you up with a real estate agent in any part of the country. Okay, on to the top spot. And number 1, New Hampshire. Yep, New Hampshire. New Hampshire reigns over this entire list. And honestly, its state motto carries a ton of the weight by itself. Live free or die isn't exactly understated. That isn't a motto. It's a warning label slapped on the whole state. The Cato Institute crowns New Hampshire the freest state in the country and notes it's hung on to the number 1 slot since 2011. The index further points out that New Hampshire posts the highest freedom score logged anywhere in the 21st century. Fraser likewise ranks New Hampshire the freest state or province economically anywhere in North America. New Hampshire's freedom formula is refreshingly plain. No broad-based income tax at the state level, no general sales tax, fairly robust property rights, a streak of political independence, and a culture that eyes the government with healthy distrust. It also has the advantage of being ringed by states that make it look even freer by contrast. Vermont sits right next door, and Cato more or less calls it the inverted twin of New Hampshire on freedom. How convenient. Nothing makes you look fiscally responsible quite like standing beside a neighbor who treats regulation as a weekend hobby. New Hampshire isn't flawless, mind you. Utah, property taxes can run steep. Housing has gotten pricey. The winters are no joke. But on the whole, if your dream is settling somewhere, the government is less inclined to treat your paycheck like a shared snack tray. New Hampshire is awfully tough to top. And there you have it, the 10 states most inclined to just let you live in peace. Honestly, kind of refreshing. Alright. If this video did it for you, odds are you'll enjoy the one right over here. It covers 100 places worth seeing before you take that final dirt nap someday. Everybody, have yourself a great day. Be kind to one another. So.